Gambling, okay? So gambling is an interesting question that comes up a lot in Christian circles. Some people believe it's so obviously and self-evidently a sin that I can't believe anyone would do it. And then other people believe, like, why on earth is this even questioned? It seems like a harmless bit of fun to me. And so you've kind of got both categories and both camps that you need to think about when it comes to gambling, okay? I don't want us to go with what our gut inclination is. I instead want to go with what the scriptures have to say, okay? So I hope by the time we're done with this lesson, you're going to understand the do's and don'ts and what the Bible has to say about gambling, okay? Now, gambling is one of those things that I think falls into not an explicit condemnation in Scripture, but there are a lot of warnings against it, so there are a lot of be carefuls, if that makes sense. Okay. And I have to stop short where the Bible stops short. I'm not going to come out and say, guys, this is sinful and you better not do it, if the Bible doesn't say that. So I'm not going to do that. The Bible doesn't explicitly condemn gambling as a sin, but it says there are 3 things that we need to be careful of when it comes to the topic of gambling. Now, the first thing that we need to be careful about is the addictive nature of gambling. 1 Corinthians 6:12 says, I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. Look at that. Paul says here explicitly that you have the right to do anything, in a sense that he's putting out, but I will not be mastered by anything, he says. What he means here, it's typically understood, he means I will not be addicted to anything. So let's say God gives you the right to gamble, okay? It carries with it a danger of addictiveness. And Paul explicitly says that as Christians, we should not be addicted to anything. So gambling, much like any dopamine releasing activity, can be addictive. That doesn't mean that it is inherently or in and of itself sinful, but it's something that we need to be careful about. We need to watch out for because it has an addictive nature to it. It releases dopamine in the brain. Your brain gets addicted to that like it can get addicted to many other things. Now, it doesn't apply only to gambling, but you need to discern for yourself whether or not this is a sin. And this is something that is difficult about this topic that we're discussing. There are many things in the Christian life that are sin for me that aren't sin for you, and vice versa. Not all of us are tempted or fall into the same sorts of sins, okay? There are certain sins that are common to mankind, but not everybody has the same inclinations towards sins. So some people, because of their inclinations, should never gamble, ever, okay? They get addicted to it, they need to stay away from it. But that does not mean that no Christian ever should gamble. You see what I mean? There's a difference there. If something is sin for you, then you should stay away from it. If something is sin for me, then I should stay away from it. But that's a far cry from making my personal weaknesses normative for the entirety of the Christian life, okay? So if you examine your own heart and you find that you are addicted to gambling, you should stay away from it, okay? It is sin for you. And there are many other things in the Christian life that might be sin for you because they have an addictive nature to them that you are particularly susceptible to. The second point has to do with greed. Let's look at 1 Timothy 6:10. It says this, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." Many people gamble because they have a love of money, and this is a root of all kinds of evil, okay? Many people have a desire to win money. They want to get money in a quick or easy way, and so this love of money might be driving somebody to gamble. If this is your motivation for gambling, a love of money, then gambling is a sin for you because you are doing it out of a wrong or impure motive that is actually drawing you away from God. Guys, we got to believe the scriptures on this one, okay? The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Many of us don't believe that. We think implicitly in our minds that if we had more money, that would make us better off, that we would be happy if we could just get enough funds, if we could just rake in enough cash. And that's not the case. You're being manipulated. You're being tricked, okay? The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and if this is what's driving you to gamble, then it is sin for you. So those are our first 2 principles. Our third one, let's go to our final verse. Proverbs 10:4 says this, "Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth." Some people gamble because They don't want to have to work for their money. They think they can trick or cheat the system. Remember, Paul said that those who are not willing to work should not eat. What Paul was pointing out is that working for our money is a natural thing that human beings should do. Human beings should desire to work hard in order to receive funds so that they could support themselves and their family. And some people try to cheat the system by saying, you know what, I'm going to gamble and try to make all my money that way. So those are our 3 principles. You should not gamble if it's addictive to you. You should not gamble if it causes you to have a love of money. And you should not gamble as a desire to trick the system. Instead of working, I'm going to gamble so that I can get money that way. Those are the 3 things the Bible warns against when it comes to gambling. So it's at this point that I want to say this. Gambling is not inherently or explicitly described as a sin in the Bible, okay? Because of that, we should not as Christians come out and explicitly say, this is a sin, you need to stop it. But where the scriptures give many warnings, we should also likewise give many warnings. And the fact of the matter is, although the Bible does not explicitly describe gambling as a sin, it does give many, many warnings against gambling. And it behooves us to also talk about those warnings, okay? And it's hard to judge yourself often, how you are being influenced or affected by it. It's hard to tell sometimes in your own heart. Am I greedy? Do I have a love of money here? I'm not sure. It's hard to judge yourself. You're going to have to try and have some self-reflection here. Or am I addicted to this? Maybe. Maybe I need to step away. Or am I trying to trick the system? Am I trying to get money quickly and easily, get rich quick scheme instead of working hard for my money? These are the sorts of pitfalls that surround gambling, okay? And we need to take those into account. Let's dig in now to the 3 principles when it comes to gambling, or 3 common scenarios. The first scenario is what I'll call a house game, okay? This is when your buddy invites you over to his house, and it's you and 5 other friends, and you guys are just going to play cards throughout the evening, and they want to gamble, okay? So usually this is a poker night or something like that, and he says, hey, bring over $10. We all buy in for $10, and we play for pennies throughout the night, okay? Now, technically, this is gambling, but it's a house game, okay? So is this something that is likely sin? Well, as long as you're not violating the top 3 principles here, then no, I don't think so. And let's be honest, at a small house game with friends, you're very unlikely to get into a greedy love for money because usually the stakes are so low, it doesn't matter. You might as well be playing for, M&Ms. Or you aren't trying to trick the system and earn a bunch of free money. And the addictiveness usually isn't there because you're not going to like a casino for the adrenaline rush to, oh man, maybe I could win it big. No, you guys are playing for a few bucks, okay? So a common scenario of a house game, when a buddy invites you over to play cards with him and his friends and you go and play, I think this is the furthest from being sin. Now, it still could be sin for somebody, but it's the most unlikely to be. What's the point? The point is to get together with friends and have a good time, okay? And again, as long as you're not violating these 3 principles, I think you're going to be in good shape, okay? So the house game is one where I think you can absolutely participate, and very rarely will you fall into sin in a situation like that. You might. I don't know the house game that you're invited to, right? Your buddy might be trying to, he might be a real shark and trying to take all your money, okay? But for the most part, this is usually a friendly, fun game, and they want to enjoy playing with each other, okay? So that's the first case, a house game. What about for entertainment? Let's say you go out for a night on the town with your spouse, and you guys go to a nice restaurant, you have a good evening, and you want to swing by the casino, for example, and play gamble a little bit, okay? Maybe throw some dice or something like that. Now, this one gets a little bit closer to this territory, okay? You guys are a little bit more in danger of being addicted to it. There might be more greed or trying to trick the system when it comes to it. But here's where I think an important principle comes into mind. What is your mindset when you're stepping into the casino? Are you and your wife saying, man, let's try to earn some money so we could pay for the dinner we just ate? Man, we just had a big dinner. We just spent a couple $100. Let's go and throw some dice and try to make all that money back. Then you're leaning more towards a sinful motivation, okay? That might be a greed or a desire to trick the system. That is a different mindset from this. And I think this mindset is important at this point. Hey, we could go to a movie and we would spend, $40 between the two of us at the movie, Or we could go and throw some dice and take our 40 bucks there, knowing that we could probably lose or we're going to lose, right? So rather than enjoying a movie, we're just enjoying throwing some dice, okay? In that case, you aren't trying to get greedy gain. And as long as your heart doesn't incline itself towards addictiveness when it comes to this, I think this might be a legitimate or an appropriate way to spend some of your money. The Bible does not explicitly tell us that in every instance, in every case, we have to make the utmost, greatest possible use of our money, okay? The Bible doesn't say that, okay, you can never spend anything on yourself and you better live like a pauper and give all of your money away. That's not how the Bible treats it. The Bible actually tells us that God gives everything to us for us richly to enjoy. I want you to see that verse. Command those who are rich in this present world to not be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. You see that, guys? God richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Some of the finances that God has given to you to steward, he has given to you so you can enjoy. And that might be you going to a movie. It might be you going and throwing some dice, okay? But you have to have that, again, self-examination. You have to have that introspection so you can tell, what is my motivation here, okay? It is legitimate for you to use some of the money that God has given you to steward on entertainment and recreation. But I want to challenge you at this point. I tell you that it's legitimate for you to use some of your money on entertainment and recreation. Now, how many of us are using a lot of our money on entertainment and recreation? Come on, raise your hand. Don't be shy. How many of us are spending 20, 30% of our income on toys for ourselves and games and trips and all of this stuff? Now, that is putting your trust in wealth or riches. You think that's what's going to make you happy. God has given you some of your wealth to be used on entertainment and recreation, but that is not what the majority of your wealth should be used on, okay? We're not meant to live as robots, just purely saving up for the most economical things, but conversely, we are also not supposed to lavish ourselves and spend tons and tons and tons of money on ourselves trying to make ourselves happy. There's a balance here that we need to maintain, guys. On this second idea of entertainment, I think if you go into it with the mindset that I'm giving my $40 away, we're going to get an hour of entertainment out of this, and I don't expect to have any money, any of my $40 back when it's done, then to me, in your mind, you're not falling into many of the common pitfalls that the Bible talks about when it comes to gambling. And so I think this can be absolutely a legitimate way to spend that money. You go spend some time with your spouse, let's throw some dice, see what happens, and you're pleasantly surprised if you walk away with 15 bucks left over. And even more surprised if you walk away with 100 bucks. But you had planned to spend that $40, and if you lost it all, that was the plan, okay? You legitimately set aside that money. It was a small investment for you compared to your net worth, and you got some fun out of it. And I think that's a legitimate way to spend that money. But again, this takes good self-examination. This takes good looking at your own heart, okay? Final one, guys. Career. And this one is probably the one that's most fraught with difficulties. I don't know if some of you guys remember, but I had somebody come into chat asking if they should become a professional poker player. They explicitly asked me that. They wanted to make a career out of gambling. Now, that's a bit different. Trying to make a career out of this is something that can be very, very dangerous because you're getting very, very close to our final 2 points. Okay, again, 1 Timothy 6:10. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. It can get you in that situation. Or Proverbs 10:4, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Not all gambling is created equal. Some gambling games are skill games. The two most common gambling games that have some skill involved in them are poker and blackjack, provided you're counting cards. Okay? And there are people who are mathematically and logically inclined that can actually beat the odds at games like poker and blackjack counting cards. But man, it can be a struggle to fight against those odds. Okay? They have to work really, really hard. And just to get the odds a couple percent in their favor. And then you have to play many, many hands in order to eke a living out of that couple of percent advantage that you've won for yourself. Now, this is possible. So I think it is possible for somebody to make a legitimate career doing this. But man, it is fraught with many pitfalls. Many, many pitfalls. Okay? And so this is something I want to warn against. It's the most difficult area to navigate. I'm, again, not going to sit here and say that it's sin. But if somebody is trying to make a career out of gambling, and then they are going to fall into the idea of addictiveness, greed, and trying to trick the system a lot easier than somebody who's just going to a house game or going to do it for entertainment. So I can imagine a scenario in which any of these three are not sin. I can imagine a scenario. But as you proceed down the list, it becomes more and more dangerous, okay? And so you need to consider that as you go down the list. Ultimately, this is one of the things the Bible doesn't explicitly talk against, but it gives many warnings around the idea. It never says you shall not gamble. But what it does say is there are many dangers that are surrounding the idea of gambling, and you better be very, very careful, okay? So this is one where I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to put a fence around you and say, no, gambling's a sin, you should stay away from it. I'm not going to do that because the scriptures don't. But I'm going to give you those warnings that the Bible talks about and tell you to consider your own heart very, very carefully. Hey guys, part of Christian growth and discipleship comes from engaging with one another and iron sharpening iron. If you would like to more actively engage with this community, we would love to have you. If you hit up Twitch or Discord down in the description below, we can get much more involved in the conversation and we would love to have you there. Take care. God bless. Bye now.